Okay, so to make a floating island, there's a lot of things you are going to want to gather. So this is kind of inspiration of what's available, just different ideas on making a floating island. So to get started with a floating island, I've got a whole bunch of different layers here with photos I've already copied and pasted into my project to make it easier. If you're somebody that has photos floating around, you visited some grand mountain, or you climbed it, or you have landscape scenery, feel free to use your own photographs. If you've flown up in an airplane and taken cool cloud photos up out the window, those are the best kind for using this. So just gonna kind of turn some of these layers off to kind of get started. So I've got all sorts of kind of random mountain pictures in my archive from Hawaii, from all over the place. I've got some grass, some clouds, a tree. So you want to kind of get your files organized so you're ready to go. And then I've got this fun cloud, and I've got this cloud layer. Okay, so to get started making a floating island, the first thing you need is usually some kind of mountaintop. So this can be, let's see, let's start with rocks in Carmel, California. So I've kind of got these rocks that I photographed. They were out in the ocean. To make a floating island, what do I need to do? I need some kind of rocky formation or mountain. And then first thing I'm going to do here is, let's just grab a selection tool here. We'll just grab a quick and easy little lasso because I'm going to probably change this. So I'm just going to draw around the area of what I want for my mountain, right? Got a selection tool. I'm going to make a quick little mask. Here we go. It's actually pretty easy when you break down how to do this. So then edit, transform. I'm going to flip it vertical. Now I have kind of the upside down beginning of my floating island. Then probably what I need to do here is just get rid of the sky, and I'm going to kind of do this kind of quickly with my tools. I'm going to grab, let's just use the magic wand tool to kind of hold the shift key down, and I will come back and refine a lot of this later. I've selected it. I have an existing mask here. So if I already have an existing mask and I've made more stuff to add onto my mask, what I want to do here is I've got the selection and I've got white selected. I'm going to say edit, fill, and that's going to just kind of keep adding to my existing mask. And it already says white actually over here, so I'm good. And there we go. Actually, hold on, edit, undo. I actually don't want to fill it with white. I want to fill it with black because black will black it out. There we go. There, now it's gone. So again, and I can go in here with my paintbrush and just kind of clean up these little edges on my island when I'm ready. But we're going to go for kind of the getting it set up. I'm going to zoom out, Command minus. And that's going to be maybe the base of one of my islands. And first thing I tend to do is distort stuff. Edit, transform. Let's go for a warp. And I just kind of want to make this island start off by looking like it's bigger and wider. There we go. So rocks in Carmel, or you're not going to recognize them by the time I'm done, but that's kind of where I'm starting. So now I've got this upside down, the rocks from Carmel, and now let's add some stuff to the top of my island. So here's some green grass. That'll do. Gosh, should I warp it or apply a mask first? So that's kind of where you start having some fun with this. I'm actually going to warp this first before let's get it. Let's apply a mask and just kind of clean the edges of it with a big brush, kind of hard here. And then I do not want this sky. That's really the only part I don't want because I've got a sky already that I'm going to do. And kind of go here. Good enough, right? So I've got kind of this field that I'm going to attach over top of my island. Now my favorite tool here, edit, transform, warp. Edit, transform, warp right here. And then I'm going to kind of start adjusting this to kind of look like it belongs on the top of an island floating somewhere in the sky. Let's hit the return key, and then let's kind of move that into position. Now you'll notice it doesn't look so great right now because I've got these hard edges and it's not blended. So this is where that advanced masking you guys have been learning comes in. So now I'm going to grab that brush and I'm going to start kind of just blacking out parts of this grass so that it starts looking like it's blended. Now I've got part of an ocean sitting there, so I don't want that, and I just kind of want the top of my island because I'm going to put some kind of city on it or something like that. You can see over here where that ocean from my rocks in Carmel is peeping through. So this is where I'm going to start kind of adjusting, and then I'm going to kind of start blending again. Here's my paintbrush tool, and I'm just kind of masking. So while this can start looking really complicated, it's the same concept of masking and just kind of warping things so that you're in control of the picture. So that's kind of the beginning of my island. And then what I've got here, I've got some other stuff in this file. I've got grass, if I want to kind of add it on top of the island. I've got, what else do I think I have a tree in here somewhere. I have some old columns for some building. I don't need that right now. That's finishing touches. More old columns from, I think it's the art area in San Francisco. A tree. Well, no, that's not the tree. Let's see. Cliffs from the bottom of an island. I've got some more stuff here. We'll use that for another part. There's the tree right here. So I'm just going to put a nice little tree on my island so you guys can just kind of see. So I could just kind of cut this out really quickly. Again, I'm just going to use kind of this I'm kind of doing it quickly. So I'm just going to use the lasso tool to kind of cut out part of the tree so I can go back later and mask the details a little more precisely. Apply a mask. So you get kind of the basic idea, and then I tend to spend hours going back and refining my images, but then I can kind of go back with my brush here and kind of get this detailed. Ultimately, if I had cut this tree out with the pen tool very painstakingly, it would probably be cleaner, but I tend to get my concept in first kind of rough and then go back and refine it. And if the tree ends up making it into the final image, like I'm going to leave the tree there, then I would go back and probably cut this out a little better. But for right now, just to get my kind of main idea in here, I'm just kind of doing it quick. So view fit on screen. So there's kind of my first little island. Now, if you start doing a very complicated image, you'll end up over here on the side with, 10, 20, 30 layers of pictures. This happens to me sometimes. One of my pictures has, I think, 500 layers in some of my more complicated images. What you might do to keep your sanity on a large image is if I look over here in my layer palette, I've got a tree, I've got the top of the island, and I've got the bottom. If I select them by holding the shift key down, here's all three of them, and I click the folder down here. Everybody see this folder icon? If I click the folder, all those files just went into a group. So I could just kind of label this island 1, right? And then if I select it by hitting Command T, the entire island will move as a group, which is really nice once you start getting into these more complicated images. So I'm going to kind of zoom out, and then for my, my picture, I might decide to make another island. Here's this one. So you can kind of have a lot of fun creatively with this project, and the sky's the limit, literally, in terms of like what elements you put in. I've seen people put bridges in and castles and houses. There's all sorts of stuff. So what you're seeing me do right now is I'm just using the paintbrush tool to mask over this chunk of rock right here. And then I'll have kind of another island off to the side. So here's this chunk of rock, which is the side of the cliff, I think in Los Lobos State Park, California. And then I'm going to actually jump back to this other island. I already cut these rocks out from Carmel. I'm going to duplicate them, and I'm going to just kind of drag them and bring them up where my other picture was. Here they are. And then I'm going to Command T. So now I've got 2 of them. Now, because I've already got these rocks over here, I don't want them to look the same. So I definitely need to stretch them and maybe distort them a little also. So I'm going to kind of do some warping here. And I might do some cloning, some other, maybe I'll shrink them up again. So they look, my goal here is that they look different than the other rocks so that you don't just go, oh, she just copied them. And then you'll see this island is kind of a gray blue. So now this rock formation, now this is the one time you will see me not use an adjustment layer because I'm going to end up with a complicated image. So image, adjust, I'm just going to do the global change here where I'm using hue saturation here, and I'm just going to kind of grab this shade of blue, knock the saturation down so it's a little gray. Now it doesn't look like the other rocks so much. You guys see the difference? So I'm going to kind of attach these to this part of my island, and then maybe I'm going to do some more warping. So this is an exercise in kind of really warping, masking, scaling, but you end up with this kind of cool Fantasyland results. And then I need to kind of mask that in because see how it doesn't really match. So again, your paintbrush tool here, I'm just going to kind of go in here. And again, I'm going to fuss with this a lot. So here's this part of the island, and then maybe I want some other trees. This is the side of the cliffs in Los Lobos again. So if you're somebody who takes a lot of photos on vacation and you've got this whole archive of kind of random pictures that maybe by themselves they weren't the greatest shots, but when you need an image element, it's called building an archive. So you get to kind of keep all your images over the years if you travel a lot, or if you just take a lot of photos, you go hiking on the weekend or something, and then you can kind of use them in these compositions of your choosing because you have the images available. So this particular file already has a bunch of my images that you can use. Like I said, you can certainly add your own images and your own spin to this. So I'm just going to kind of scale these trees down over here, and then I have some other fun stuff kind of in this particular file. I have those columns from the park in San Francisco, Palace of the Arts, maybe that's what it's called. I'm going to put that on top of this. And again, this is the wrong color. It's kind of tan, so image adjust, hue saturation. I'm going to kind of make this like the blue island, really. There we go. Kind of looks like ancient Greece, but it's not. Just in my imagination it is. So then I'm applying a mask. I'm using the paintbrush tool here, and I'm going to knock out the part that I don't need, which is apparently all of it right here. And I'll go back and kind of refine it. I need a smaller brush to do that. We'll just kind of go like so. The sky here clearly doesn't belong. I need to kind of go through and cut it. But you guys can kind of see where I'm going in terms of this. So again, I'm going to group my pictures. So hold on. I've selected one layer. Hold the shift key down. Select the next layer and the next. So I've got 4 in this island. I'm going to click the folder down here, and I'm going to name it Island 2. There we go. So now I have kind of 2 islands. If you're somebody who, starts making complicated images, you do want to kind of organize yourself. Whoops. And if you kind of hold them all, if you select this folder and move it, sometimes this is what's happening to me. What's happening here is they're not all selected. So if you would like to do yourself a favor and click each of these layers, you hold the shift key down as you go. They're all in a folder, so your layer palette's organized, but you might use this button down here. It looks like a chain link. What that does is it links your pictures together. So now, you guys see over here on the side, it's got this little link button. That means when I move it, it's all linked together. So that's one way to kind of organize to keep your sanity if you start working on kind of a more complicated image. So I just need to kind of get in here and get rid of this sunset thing. But you guys, I think, hopefully get the idea. Does this make sense so far on how you would do this? Okay, and then I've got, these clouds down here. I might, at that point in time, decide those clouds are boring. Maybe I want these exciting clouds. Then I need some shadows. You can kind of go back in. Let's just add a shadow layer here. So I've got, actually, here's where the blend modes come in handy. I've got kind of these nice fluffy clouds over here. What if I play with the blend modes and just start kind of arrowing down to see what they look like? You start getting some kind of fun and unusual combinations when you mess with these blending modes up here, the different skies. They're one of those things of Photoshop that you just kind of go through and play with them to see how they look. So actually, that looks a little more dreamy when I have it on the lighten mode. And again, I need to do some shadowing. So if I wanted to do shadowing, maybe I would do an entire adjustment layer on top. So let's try that. Adjustment layer. We'll do curves. And curves is such a great tool for this. This is a little more advanced, but if I knock it down, that's going to make my whole image shadowy. If I bring it up, it's going to make my whole image overexposed. What I want to do is make it appear like there's a light source in one part of my image. So I'm going to bump it up like that. That's a highlight. Then I'm going to fill it all with black. This is a little more advanced, but I filled my whole curves layer with black, so it just disappeared. Then, you guys know how to do this already, paint on mask, but you're going to reverse it. So I'm going to flip this to white, and I'm going to paint with white. And what I'm going to do is paint back that highlight so it looks like I've got a light source kind of happening off to the left side of my scene. And this is how you kind of bring a composite together at the end as you start getting your light source kind of exact. Now that's kind of a bright highlight, so I can go back. Let's just kind of knock that highlight down a little bit. There we go. And it looks like I've got a shadow happening on the other side of my island. What I like to do is add one more curve layer and call this the shadow curve, the shadow layer. So, and I will usually label my curves over here highlights, and then the next one is going to be the shadow. So I call this one curves shadow. And then this one is going to be, you know, and the beauty of these adjustment layers is I can go back and adjust them as I need to, but we'll just kind of bring in some shadows. Same technique. I highlight the mask layer and I fill it with black to make it completely go away. That's going to mean it's gone, but I paint back the shadow. So this is the digital version of dodge and burn. How many of you guys have done dodge and burn in the darkroom before? This is how you kind of do a dodge and burn digitally. So now I'm just kind of going back and I'm burning in some shadows to kind of add some depth, some highlight and shadows to kind of get. And then I might need even like the shadow on the island, on the clouds, kind of down here. And I could spend hours working on an image like this. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick rough idea. Normally I would go back and I'd spend tons and tons of time on the detail and I'd add a little people on top of the island or in the building, such like that. So if I turn off my, just so you guys see the difference, here's my curves, here's my shadows. If I turn them off, actually, I'll put them in a folder and then I'll call them highlight shadows so you guys can see. I always do this when I'm working on a picture. Turn it off and you can see how my image looks a little more exciting when it's got kind of the highlight and the shadow layer happening. And then, you know, you can go and add all sorts of other stuff. But for the sake of brevity, I'm going to say go ahead, turn your computers on right now, and you guys can get started with this file and make your own floating island.